Imagine, just standing on this sprawling rooftop of a massive, 2 million square foot brick factory.
Right, which sounds so industrial.
Yeah, but instead of that deafening roar of, 20th century industry or the smell of exhaust, you're actually hearing the clinking of wine glasses.
Oh, wow.
And you're smelling like a dozen different types of global street food. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at an actual functioning amusement park right there on the roof.
It's just wild to picture.
It really is. So today we are looking at how a major American city completely reinvented itself. Welcome to another deep dive where our mission is to, help you bypass the standard tourist traps and really uncover the authentic culinary soul of Atlanta, Georgia.
And, this isn't just about finding a good place to eat either.
Right.
It is really about understanding how a post-industrial city survives, how it adapts, and ultimately thrives by repurposing its literal foundation.
Exactly, yeah. And our entire roadmap today comes from this fantastic travel blog post by Louis from Red Solo Traveler.
Oh, yeah, that's a great piece.
It's titled, The Definitive Food and Booze Guide to Atlanta. And, what makes this guide so compelling isn't just the list of restaurants, right? It's the underlying story of urban renewal.
For sure.
Okay, let's unpack this because the core theme that jumps out immediately is Atlanta's transformation.
Which is drastic.
Seriously, we are talking about a city whose early growth was completely tied to the railroads. It was this gritty, heavy, logistical hub.
Right.
But today, it's this incredibly diverse melting pot.
Right.
But, those old bones of the city are still there.
Which is absolutely crucial to understand, actually, because a city's history dictates how and what it eats.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, when a city starts as a railroad and industrial center, you inherit this massive physical infrastructure.
Oh, like the warehouses and stuff.
Exactly. Warehouses, assembly plants, long distribution lines. And when the economy shifts away from heavy industry, those colossal brick spaces don't just, disappear overnight.
Right, they just sit there.
Yeah. They either rot or they evolve. So what we're seeing in Atlanta is how a city is quite literally eating its own history.
Eating its own history.
I love that. They are taking those abandoned industrial footprints and turning them into the foundation of a modern culinary boom.
So basically, instead of bulldozing the past, they are dining inside of it.
Precisely.
Let's look at how this actually works logistically, focusing on what we could call the architecture of eating.
I love that phrase.
Yeah. So the guide highlights Ponce City Market as the prime example.
Oh, definitely.
Louis mentions visiting it when it opened, I think back in the fall of 2015, and just being completely blown away. This place is housed in a former Sears Roebuck Co. building.
What's fascinating here is the economic shift this represents. Think about what Sears was in the early to mid 20th century.
It was huge.
It was the Amazon of its day.
Right.
That building was a central hub of physical commerce and distribution. It was designed for thousands of workers and train cars full of catalog merchandise.
Just massive scale.
Exactly. So to retrofit a space that large for modern dining is a massive engineering undertaking.
I can't even imagine.
You have to think about the HVAC systems, the commercial plumbing required for, dozens of individual kitchens.
Oh, right, because every stall needs sinks and ventilation.
Exactly. And the electrical load alone is staggering.
So why do it?
Yeah.
Really, why take on the headache of retrofitting a massive century-old brick warehouse instead of just building a shiny new restaurant complex from scratch?
Well, it comes down to the economics of the modern food hall model.
Okay.
In a traditional restaurant setup, a chef has to take on enormous financial risk to open a brick-and-mortar location.
Oh, sure.
They have to pay for the dining room, the bathrooms, the staff, the marketing, all of it.
It's a huge barrier.
But in a food hall like Ponce City Market, all of that infrastructure is shared. The developers provide the shell, the seating, and the foot traffic.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, the chefs just rent a stall and focus entirely on the food. It drastically lowers the barrier to entry for culinary talent.
It's essentially like a startup incubator, but for food.
That's a perfect way to put it.
You take this giant, heavy industrial brick from the 20th century, and you turn it into a low-risk ecosystem where a chef can just, test a new global street food concept.
Oh, right. And it's not just food either.
No, the guide says Ponce City Market has shops, local vendors, and that rooftop amusement park we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's such a wild feature.
You can even book short or long-term stays right inside the market.
Which brings up a really critical concept in retail and urban planning called dwell time.
Dwell time.
Yeah. If you just build a restaurant, a customer stays for an hour and leaves.
Right.
But if you build a micro-city that includes an amusement park, a mix of high-end international cuisine, southern comfort food, and retail shopping...
You're basically trapping them there, but in a good way.
Exactly. A visitor might stay for 6 hours, and the longer they dwell, the more the entire ecosystem thrives.
And that model is clearly working because it's being replicated in other parts of the city.
For sure.
The guide points us to Chattahoochee Food Works and the surrounding complex. It's called the Works ATL over on the Upper West Side.
Oh, right, the Andrew Zimmern project.
Yeah, created by celebrity chef Andrew Zimmern and Robert Montwade, who founded New York's Gansevoort Market.
Right, so they chose another renovated factory complex as their canvas.
Naturally.
And they've expanded on that dwell time concept even further. It's a food hall, yes, but it's surrounded by apartments, a self-serve winery.
Wait, a self-serve winery?
Yeah, pretty cool, right? Plus a dog park, social gaming spaces, and live music. The author specifically notes this wonderfully laid-back atmosphere with a local cover band playing on the lawn.
Okay, but I need to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
We're talking about these massive multi-million-dollar gentrified playgrounds, right? Masterminded by celebrity chefs from out of town.
That's true.
So what does this all mean for the authenticity of the city? Do we lose something when we eat BBQ in a shiny new multi-million-dollar food hall compared to standing in a long line at a literal shack? Like, does it strip away the actual soul of the neighborhood?
It is a very valid concern.
Because sanitizing an old industrial district and dropping in luxury apartments feels a bit, I don't know, polished.
It does. And the tension between preservation and gentrification is something every rapidly growing post-industrial city wrestles with. The risk of pricing out the locals and erasing the cultural history is incredibly real.
Yeah.
However, a city's food scene isn't a monolith. The shiny new food halls represent Atlanta's future as this global cosmopolitan hub, but they don't necessarily overwrite the deeply rooted local gems that anchor the community. You just have to know where to look.
Okay, which brings us to the absolute opposite end of the spectrum.
Yes.
The smoke and the soul of the South. Barbecue.
The real deal.
While the massive factory renovations get all the glossy magazine covers, places like Fat Matt's Rib Shack on Piedmont Avenue represent the unpolished, vibrant heartbeat of the city.
And Fat Matt's is the absolute perfect counterweight to the multi-million-dollar food hall.
Oh, completely. The guide emphasizes that the physical appearance of the place is incredibly unassuming.
It literally looks like a shack.
Yeah, no pretense, no high-end design firm behind it, just a shack.
But the guide also notes that if you arrive at 7 p.m., you are going to find a line stretching out the door and down the street.
Which is saying something.
In the culinary world, a line out the door at a place with zero aesthetic frills is the ultimate indicator of authenticity and quality.
Right, because people aren't waiting in line for the ambiance.
Exactly. They are waiting for the mastery of the craft. And barbecue is a profound craft.
Let's actually talk about that craft for a second.
Sure.
The guide highlights their mouth-watering ribs and classic sides.
Sure.
But what actually makes Southern barbecue so distinct? Like, why the obsession with hickory smoke and these insanely long cook times?
Well, it comes down to the culinary science of low and slow cooking.
Okay.
Historically, barbecue developed as a way to make the toughest, cheapest cuts of meat palatable.
Because they couldn't afford the prime cuts.
Right. If you take a pork shoulder or a rack of ribs and throw it on a high-heat grill like a steak...
It'd be like chewing on a shoe.
Exactly. It will be impossibly tough. But if you expose it to indirect heat and wood smoke, specifically hickory, which imparts a very distinct, sweet, and strong flavor profile.
Oh, I love hickory smoke.
And you do that at a low temperature for hours upon hours, a chemical change happens. The tough collagen in the meat slowly breaks down into rich, tender gelatin.
Wow. So you are basically using time and smoke to chemically transform a cheap cut of meat into a delicacy.
That's exactly what's happening.
And at Fat Matt's, you get to experience that alongside live music from local artists several times a week.
It's an experience.
Standing in line, smelling that hickory smoke and hearing live blues spilling out the door, I mean, that is an anchor of the community.
It absolutely is. Now, because it is such an anchor, that line can be pretty daunting. So the author provides a strategic backup option.
Right. Des BBQ.
Yes.
They have 2 locations, right? One in West Midtown on Collier Road and another down in Grant Park on Memorial Drive.
That's right. And they operate on a counter service model, which is a bit faster.
Which is great if you're starving.
But they do not cut corners on the science we just discussed. They are deeply committed to that time-honored hickory-smoked tradition, offering classic Southern sides and a great beer selection to complement the heavy, savory meats.
And speaking of beer, I feel like that is the perfect pivot.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we've covered the ancient science of fire and meat. Now we have to look at the modern microbiology of brewing.
Yes, the new frontier.
Because Atlantis is currently crafting what we might call the New South when it comes to beverages. The globally inspired craft beer scene there is just exploding.
And once again, we see this scene taking root in those massive industrial spaces. A prime example from the source text is the food hall at Lee plus White.
Right. This is a series of old factory buildings that have been heavily curated around breweries. The standout mentioned in the guide is Monday Night Garage.
Such a cool spot.
But okay, I understand putting a restaurant in a factory, but why specifically use these massive spaces for brewing? Like, why not a smaller building?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about the sheer physical footprint required for advanced brewing techniques.
Oh, the equipment takes up that much space.
Well, Monday Night Garage focuses heavily on barrel-aged and sour-type beers. Let's break that down. A standard brewery is essentially a sterile laboratory.
Right, super clean.
You boil the grain, add a specific controlled strain of yeast, and let it ferment in stainless steel tanks. But sour beers rely on wild yeast strains and bacteria like lactobacillus or Brettanomyces.
Wait, really? So you are intentionally introducing bacteria to the beer to give it that tart, acidic, sour flavor?
Exactly. It's on purpose.
That's wild.
But here's the catch. If those wild bacteria get into the stainless steel tanks of your regular beers, it completely ruins the entire batch.
Oh, cross-contamination.
Right. So breweries often need a completely separate physical facility, like an old garage or factory, just to handle the sours.
So they literally need a quarantine zone for the sour beer.
Exactly.
Okay.
Furthermore, barrel aging requires literally stacking hundreds of wooden barrels so the beer can slowly extract the tannins and residual flavors from the oak over months or years. You need massive square footage to do that at scale.
Okay, that makes perfect sense now. The industrial architecture dictates the kind of culinary science you can perform inside of it.
Precisely.
And right next door is Wild Heaven Beer. You can grab a complex barrel-aged beer and then just walk outside into this peaceful seating area surrounded by diverse food options.
Yeah, it's a great setup.
Like Korean, Vietnamese, pizza, cocktail bars, a steak bar.
This is where Atlanta's identity as a modern melting pot really shines. You have cutting-edge, hyper-local brewing science sharing a patio with global street food.
It's such a cool mix.
And that international influence isn't just in the food, it extends directly into the brewing styles themselves.
Which brings us to Bold Monk Brewing Co. This place sounds almost like a contradiction, but it apparently works perfectly.
It really does.
It's located near Chattahoochee Food Works, and it is a vibrant Belgian-style brewery.
This is a fascinating cultural synthesis. The guide mentions they offer beer flights featuring doubles, triples, lagers, barrel-aged beers, IPAs, and stouts.
So what exactly makes a beer a Belgian double or triple? I see those terms all the time on menus, but never really know what they mean.
Well, those styles trace their lineage back centuries to Trappist monks in European monasteries.
Monks, like literal monks.
Literal monks. They brewed these beers to sustain themselves during fasting periods.
That's a great fasting strategy.
Right. So a double is typically a rich, malty, dark amber beer. A triple is lighter in color, but notoriously high in alcohol content, often 8 or 9%.
Oh, wow, that sneaks up on you.
It does, and it relies on specific Belgian yeast strains that produce complex, fruity, and spicy flavors known as esters.
Okay, so you have these incredibly complex, high-alcohol beers developed by fasting European monks centuries ago, being meticulously recreated in a repurposed industrial corridor in the American South.
Yeah, exactly.
And served alongside a menu of frites, mussels, and pizza. I mean, it's incredible. It's just how Atlanta doesn't just pave over its Southern culture. It effortlessly absorbs international traditions and just adds them as new layers.
But as you can imagine, experiencing all of these layers from The history of Ponce City Market, to the barbecue at Fat Matt's, to the sour beers at Lee Plus White.
It can be incredibly overwhelming for a visitor.
Totally.
You would end up with major information overload, not to mention a serious stomachache if you tried to do it all at once.
You really would.
So how do you actually conquer this city physically and intellectually?
Well, you need an artery to connect the disparate parts of the city, and Atlanta built one.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Atlanta took a former railway corridor, connecting right back to that railroad history we talked about at the very beginning.
Little circle.
Yeah, and converted it into a massive, multi-use pedestrian trail called the Atlanta BeltLine Walkway.
It's a masterstroke of urban planning, honestly. Dead industrial zones tend to stay dead because they are cut off from pedestrian foot traffic.
Because nobody wants to walk through an abandoned rail yard.
Exactly. By turning the old train tracks into a paved path, the city instantly connected neighborhoods that were previously isolated.
Right.
If you look at the guide, places like Ponce City Market and Lee Plus White are located directly on this walkway.
Oh, so they are physically linked.
Yeah. The Beltline acts as a literal, walkable lifeline, pumping economic blood into these old factories.
It's like an edible roadmap. You can physically walk from one culinary hub to the next.
Yes.
But even with the Beltline, sometimes you need a guide to help you contextualize what you are seeing and tasting. That's why Louis' blog post heavily emphasizes specific food tours and classes.
Which I think is a great recommendation.
But I have to wonder, why have food tours become so incredibly popular lately? Like, people used to just sit on a double-decker bus and look at monuments.
Well, it's because modern travelers are shifting from passive consumption to active engagement.
What do you mean?
A double-decker bus separates you from the city behind a pane of glass. A food tour immerses you in it. It's culinary storytelling.
Ah, okay.
You are tasting the economic and cultural shifts of the neighborhood in real time.
Let's break down a few of the tours the guide recommends then. First, there's the Atlanta BeltLine Food, Street Art, and History Walking Tour.
A great one.
This takes you along the Eastside Trail. You stop at 6 locally owned award-winning restaurants, but between bites, you're taking in iconic street murals and viewing Victorian houses in Atlanta's very first suburb.
So you are digesting the art and the architectural history right along with the food.
Yeah. Then there is the Historic Market Food Tour and Biscuit Cooking Class, which takes place at the Municipal Market.
This perfectly highlights your point about active engagement.
Right, because you don't just order a Southern biscuit, you get your hands covered in flour.
Right.
You learn the specific technique of cutting cold butter into the dough to create those flaky layers. You learn the actual mechanics of the cuisine.
Exactly, you're doing it yourself. And for those interested in deeper societal history, the guide points to the Midtown Secret Food Tour.
Yeah, let's talk about that one.
Midtown is described as a city of the future with strong ties to its past. I mean, it's the home of Coca-Cola and the Braves.
Classic Atlanta.
Yeah.
And the food on this tour ranges from classic down south soul food like chicken and waffles to international plates like yucca fries. But the storytelling aspect here is what's really crucial.
It is. The guide mentions they share the historical lore of Atlanta as the city too busy to hate.
Oh, I've heard that phrase.
Yeah, that specific phrase was a political mantra championed by Atlanta's leaders during the Civil Rights Movement. Now, we're just reporting what the source says here, but essentially it signaled that the city was prioritizing economic progress and social integration over the violent division seen in other parts of the South at the time.
Right. So when you understand that historical context they are presenting, the diversity of the food you are eating, the soul food sitting right next to the international cuisine, it makes profound sense.
It completely changes how you view the plate in front of you.
It really does.
Mm.
And finally, if you want to explore the microbiology we talked about earlier, there's the Atlanta Brew Bus Tour.
Oh, the brew bus.
It's a chauffeured half-day tour to 3 breweries, starting with a private tour and guided tasting at Sweetwater Brewing. You actually get to hear from the brewers and learn how different malts and hops affect the final sip.
What all these tours accomplish is turning the city into an immersive text. You aren't just eating, you are learning the history, the sociology, and the science of Atlanta through its flavors.
It's the ultimate shortcut to understanding the city.
Sure.
So just to recap the incredible journey we've been on today, we started by exploring how massive, obsolete 20th century infrastructures like the old Sears building at Ponce City Market.
Right, the behemoths.
Yeah, how they are being economically transformed into modern culinary incubators.
Uh-huh.
Then we debated the tension between these new food halls and the authentic, deeply rooted traditions of places like Fat Matt's Rib Shack.
Where we explored the science of hickory smoke and slow cooking.
Exactly. We unpacked the microbiology happening in the repurposed factories at Lee plus White and Bold Monk Brewing. And finally, we saw how the BeltLine and culinary food tours tie all of these threads together into one cohesive, edible story.
This raises an important question.
Oh, I love where this is heading.
If Atlanta's current food scene is defined by its past, by taking the heavy industrial factories and railway corridors of the 20th century and turning them into the bustling food halls and walkways of today,
Yeah.
what does the next phase of urban renewal look like?
Oh, that is fascinating to think about. What is the architecture we're building right now that will be completely obsolete in 50 years?
Exactly.
With the shift toward remote work, are the empty glass and steel corporate office buildings of today going to become the vertical food halls and breweries of the 22nd century?
It's totally possible.
Will people be taking an elevator up to the 45th floor of a former accounting firm to eat hickory-smoked brisket and drink barrel-aged sour beers?
History strongly suggests that spaces always find a way to serve the people.
Sure.
The industries may change, the economies may shift, but people will always need a place to gather, and they will always need to eat.
That is an incredible thought to leave on. A city is a living, adapting organism. And it turns out the best way to do archaeology in a place like Atlanta isn't with a brush and a magnifying glass. It's with a fork, a knife, and a really good appetite.
So true.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As always, stay curious and always come hungry for new knowledge.